Chapter 14. California. More people live in California than in any other state. Over 30 million of them. It is the biggest state after Texas and Alaska, and it is a state of differences. The highest mountain in the USA outside Alaska is Mount Whitney in the east of the state. It is 4,420 meters high. And California has the lowest, driest place in the USA, Death Valley, which is 86 meters lower than the sea. It is very hot there, 56.7 degrees centigrade on the hottest day in 1913. And in some years, it does not rain at all. But the north of the state is quite cold and wet. This is where the great redwood trees grow, the tallest trees in the world. The biggest is 115.5 meters high. Also in the north is the Napa Valley area, where excellent wines are made. California grows more fruit and vegetables than any other state in the USA. But it is also famous for its computer factories. Hewlett and Packard started their business in California, and Apple have their head offices there. San Francisco is, many people think, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. In 1849, people came here to look for gold, and they became known as 49ers. Jeans were first made in San Francisco by Levi Strauss in those days. The city grew fast, but was nearly destroyed in 1906 by an earthquake and the fire which followed it. There was another big earthquake in 1989 when 62 people died, and everyone knows that one day there will be another. But 800,000 Americans continue living in San Francisco because life there is fun. San Francisco was the meeting place for two groups of people who wanted a life that was different from the life of ordinary people. In the 1950s, there were the beatniks, like writers Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, who wore black and were not interested in money and jobs. Then, in the 1960s, hippies came to San Francisco. They wore bright clothes, had long hair, and wanted a world full of peace and love. 1967 was the Summer of Love, with songs that talked about peace and love and told young people, if you go to San Francisco, wear a flower in your hair. San Francisco is also famous for the Golden Gate Bridge, which was built in 1937 and joins the city to Marin County. More than 40 million journeys are made across it every year. It is 2.7 kilometers long and 67 meters above the water. From the bridge, you can see the island of Alcatraz, which was a prison until 1963. Los Angeles is the second biggest city in the USA, with 3.8 million people. It can take hours to drive from one side to the other, and people almost always drive. The number of cars means that the city has a problem with dirty air. In some parts of the city, crime is a problem too. But visitors still come to see places like Hollywood and Beverly Hills. The first film was made in Hollywood in 1911, in a place where orange trees used to grow. The first films, with actors like Rudolph Valentino, Charlie Chaplin, and Buster Keaton, were silent. But then, in 1927, films got sound. In the 1930s and 1940s, Famous stars like Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart, and Katharine Hepburn appeared in films like It Happened One Night, Casablanca, and The Philadelphia Story. Some of the greatest films of the time came from the crime stories of the famous Californian writers Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler. Chandler wrote about the detective Philip Marlowe, who was played by Bogart in The Big Sleep. Today, films are big business. It costs millions of dollars to make them, but they can make millions of dollars more. On Hollywood Boulevard, you can visit Mann's Chinese Theater, where film stars have left the shapes of their hands and feet in the ground. You can visit Paramount Studios in Hollywood, where the Godfather films were made, or Universal Studios outside the city, where you can feel an earthquake or see King Kong and Jurassic Park. In Beverly Hills, you can drive past the homes of famous stars. Mickey Mouse first appeared in 1928 in films by Walt Disney. Disney died in 1966, but his company continues to make very popular films like Pirates of the Caribbean. Disneyland is the top place for tourists in California. It is in Orange County, in the south of the state. If you visit Disneyland, you will meet Mickey Mouse and his friends walking around the park. You can visit the castle of Sleeping Beauty, ride on a riverboat, or have an Indiana Jones or Tarzan adventure.